right, folks. I got a couple people asking for a video on how to do this stuff, and by golly, I would love to help you out. So here we go. We're going to talk about standard form. Intercepts in standard form. That's the assignment we're looking at right now. Intercepts in standard form. Okay. So we're going to really quickly go over some things that you need to know. So we're going to write them here. I'm going to zoom way in. So we basically have a blank screen. So here's the stuff you need to remember. Text, this is going to be tiny. The first thing we learned was slope-intercept. You need to know that. Okay, because I will refer back to form. That's y equals mx plus b. This is one way that you can write absolutely any line. Y equals mx plus b. M equals the slope, steepness, I'll put this on the next line so it doesn't. And b equals the y-intercept. Where the line crosses the y/vertical axis. Okay, so that's the stuff that we need to know so far. Okay, that's this right here, this format. We're going to do different format. It's not that the line is different. The line is the same line. We're just writing it a different way. Okay, so the new way that we're going to discuss about is, by the way, I'm just going to move on and erase things. If you need to see this again, you can rewind because it's a video after all. What we're going to go into now is another form for writing lines called standard form. Now, the last form focused on the slope of the line, how steep it was, and the one intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Standard form focuses on intercepts only. Okay, that's why we use standard form. When we don't know about the slope, but we know where it crosses each axis, we can write it in standard form. And if we have something in standard form, the easiest way to graph it is to focus on the intercepts. Okay, intercepts. It goes ax plus b y equals c. You can have capitals. I'm going to leave them lowercase because sometimes capitals can mean other things later in math. And yeah, so A, B, and C are just numbers in this form. Okay, so we just need to write things with a number times x plus a number times y plus some other number, or equals some other number. That's what standard form is. And if A and B divide nicely into C, this is very easy to graph using intercepts. Intercepts. Last thing you're going to want to know is if to get an x intercept, make y equals 0. To get a y-intercept, equal 0. These are facts that will last for the rest of your life. This is something you will do in pre-calculus and calculus and early college math. At a certain point, it'll be so fundamental that you don't think about it. But these are facts. They will not change on you. This, very important to know. We actually did something and we talked about that a tiny bit. Now it's more important because In standard form, we focus on intercepts. So if I want to find an intercept, I make the other variable be 0. We'll see how that looks. Okay. Then the next assignment that you're supposed to learn is point slope. Point slope comes from learning slope. At this one, you don't know any of the intercepts, but you know a point and the slope of the line. That's why it's called point slope form. Don't know any intercepts. It's for. Okay. Looks like this. Y, let's see. Y minus I1. I don't know how to do sub x in these. Oh, there it is. I1 equals m times x minus x1. There. M equals slope, just like before. And the point of the line. It's the proper the point. X1 I1. Boom. Okay, so now we have a point that it goes through and how steep the line is. Now the point is split up. That's very important to notice. This point is split up. X1's right there, Y1's right there. So those are going to be numbers. Okay, so that's how this, we'll talk about that one, not even in this assignment. So I'm going to erase this and we're going to move on. Okay, hopefully that clarifies some of the things we're dealing with. And I'm going to pause because my wife is calling. Right, so now we have talked about all of those things. We talked about the three forms. Those are three forms to talk about any line. I can talk about any line in any of those three ways. It's just that sometimes different situations call for different ways to talk about things because it's just easier. So really our goal is to understand these well enough to use them in the easy way. All right, so now we're talking about Math Club and 20 cases and 24 bars each. Let's talk about that. We have a Math Club. They are using slope intercept, blah, blah, blah. They're selling candy bars to raise money. The clubs buy 20 cases and 24 bars for $200. 24 bars each for $200. How much does it cost for 20 cases and 24 bars? $200. Oops, I gotta make this big again because I just zoomed out. It costs $200. All right, so that's $10 per case, right? Per case. And if I divide that by 24 on each case, let's see, 10 divided by 24. I'm going to use a calculator for that. You don't actually have to answer this, but I just like to know. So what are they paying per candy bar? They're paying, oh, stop it, computer. Here we are. All right. 10 divided by 24 is 42 cents, about 42. Here we are. Okay, because there are 20. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, what does the y-intercept represent in this? Okay, so here's their thing. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them because they've got all these things. There it is. Okay, so we're going to figure out what it means. Notice they start out, here's their red line, and it's going up. As they go to the right, this keeps track of how many bars they sold. So as you go right, they've sold more bars. It stops at 300. Why? Well, who knows? Maybe it's because it went off the graph. I don't know. How many bars did they buy might be an interesting question to ask, and how much money they make, how much profit they made. Okay, so notice they start out losing money. They lose $200. So for example, if they bought all of the candy bars and they never sold a single one, then they just spent $200 on candy bars. They lost $200. They have to sell candy bars until they break even. You can see this, they sell candy bars until they get to 100 candy bars sold, then they broke even. They haven't made money, they haven't lost money. Once they sell more than 100 bars, then they're finally actually making money. This is very common for businesses. So what does the y-intercept represent down here? Y-intercept represents how much money they make without selling any candy bars. B equals 0. Notice they're keeping track of bars sold with B right here, so it equals 0. This graph, the x-axis is at 0. Okay, that's fine. Okay. It's negative. But it's negative down here. We said because we lose money. Don't sell the candy. That'll work. Okay, so that's the answer I would give for that. What is the x-intercept? Now remember, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, the vertical. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. Notice they changed them. One is p and the other is b. Doesn't matter. The p-axis and the b-axis. The horizontal axis is what we're talking about when we call the x-intercept. So this right here is 100. So they sell candy bars. They sell 50 candy bars. Now they're only $100 in the hole. They sell $100 candy bars. Now they've made back their money. All right. So let's talk about how that works. Let's see here. We're going to say then the x-axis right here states that where they break even. Now they haven't made money and they haven't lost money. The x-intercept represents when the club breaks even. If they sell 100 candy bars, then they won't be, let's see, will owe $0, but they won't have any actual profit either. So they won't have made money, but they won't have lost money either. Right? P equals 0. Their profit equals 0. This is P. This is 0 now. I'm going to change this to profit. Sold. Okay. You can see profit in dollars and bars sold. All right. What's the slope of this? Okay, what is the slope of this? Now, here's the cool thing. We don't actually have to know what the slope is, do we? Now, it would be nice to know what the slope is because that's going to have to do with how much they're selling the bars for, right? It takes them 100 bars to make $200. Hey, let's see, this goes over 100 and not 200. That means for every one it goes over, it goes up twice as far, right? 100 over, 200 up. So looking at the intercepts 100 bars, costs, earns $200. Right? So we've got $200, 100 bars. Remember, this is y and x. So the 100 bars, x axis, $200, that's the y axis. Slope is in y, by in x. Always y is on top. So that's 200 divided by 100, or $2 per candy bar. All right, that's what the slope represents. It's 2. So, and you can figure that out. Mostly, this is just about knowing what to call it. It goes over 100, 200. That's what I just did, just like we did in the past. All right, and that's what I find. Every candy bar costs $2. Okay, what's the function? Or they're selling them for $2. Makes $2 profit. That would be a better way to say it. Right? What a function rule represents their sales of profit. Well, there are lots of ways we could do this. Okay. So in the past, we would say, now I know the slope y equals mx plus b. And we would say, okay, y equals, now I know it goes up by $2 per candy bar. That's my slope. We just wrote it up here. And we know it crosses at negative 200. So I can say 2x minus 200. That is the way we would have written it. How to write a function in slope-intercept form. Okay, so that's one way we could do it. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Oh. There, all right. Now I want to circle it. So this is one way to do it. Hopefully it makes sense. What is the x-intercept of this graph and all that fun stuff? But there are other ways to do this as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about another way to do it that avoids slope entirely. Okay, here's what I notice. Okay, 100 plus 0 makes 100, right? Negative 200 plus 0. What we're going to do is we're going to try to make them add to make something. So for example, how could I do this? Sorry, I'm having a moment here. I'm going to see. I don't want to go off of task too much because I have a feeling they want us to use a different way to do it. Okay, so let's go through here the way that they want us to do it really fast. Okay, next. We got that. We know the y and the x-intercepts. We learned that. What is the slope of the graph? We learned that the slope is $2. Yep. How do they want us to do this? Oh, they do want us to do y equals mx plus b. All right, great. Let's continue. Sorry, I didn't want to switch forms on you too early. So now we've got another y equals mx plus b right here. The weird thing is this one doesn't have anything written. What is the value of x when we're on the y axis? So if we're at this point, right? X equals 0. Okay, how do I know that? I don't have to actually know what number that is. Okay, x equals 0 if we cross the y-axis. The yellow point maybe, I don't know, let's say it's 2 up. It could be 0, 2. or 0, 3, or 0, 4. I don't know. It depends on how far up it is. I don't really have a way of saying, but I know that the first number is 0. Why? Because this point is not to the right, and it's not to the left. It's in the middle of this graph on the y-axis. That's what we mean when we say x is 0. The first number of that point is 0, the x coordinate. Okay, so explain why b in y equals mx plus b is the y-intercept. Okay, so we have y equals mx plus b, right? Now, we just said that the y-intercept is where x equals 0, correct? Said that. See this little point on the y-axis? It always starts with a 0. Okay, so that's still the same x in the function as it is in the point. The points keep track of the functions keep track of the points. The numbers are not changing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, so if x equals 0, then y equals m times 0 plus b. Well, here's the crazy thing. We don't know how steep this line is because we never said what m was. But I do know that any number times 0 is just 0. 0 plus b. And 0 doesn't need to be written. So really just y equals b. In other words, if I have this guy right here, I plug 0 in for x, then y will always equal whatever number b happens to be. That is the truth of the matter. Okay? So there you go. That might be a weird way to explain it, but notice I plug the 0 in for x, and I get y equals b. All right. Without graphing, what is the y-intercept of this guy right here? Okay, remember, y equals mx plus b. This is a very straightforward thing to understand. We want our y-intercept, right? There's our y-intercept. This is mx plus b. So 32. The y-intercept of this graph. 32. And that's all there is to it. You have to understand this format and read it correctly. That's why we're learning these. It's all about having shortcuts. Okay, without graphing, what's the y-intercept of this guy? Let me give you a second to think about it. Hopefully you know by now. Y equals mx plus b. M b b. All I did was m equals 3 halves, b equals 12. B is the y-intercept. Learn that. That's whenever x is 0, b is going to end up being y. So we're going to end up with our y-intercept. We're going to get better at this over time. That's the answer. Okay, standard form of a linear equation. I just told you that. It's ax plus by equals c. They might use capital letters for A, B, and C. A, B, and C. Are all integers, if possible. Okay. So we'll talk about, well, are all numbers. We're just going to keep it simple and say all numbers. Okay. So when this is in standard form, you'll have like 3x plus 2y equals 5 or something like that. Explain why one way to find x and y intercepts of an equation in standard form. Okay, so here's the trick. Okay, to find the x-intercept, this is a rule. This is like a rule. Y equals 0. To find the y-intercept, make x equal 0. Why does this work? For each of these graph the resulting point. You should get question mark 0 and 0 question mark. Connect these points and graph the line. That is how you can do this, okay? All right, so let's do that. Let's try that. So we're going to do step 1 right now. I'm going to make x equal, no, we're going to make y equal 1, okay? Step 1. So we'll make y equal 1. That's going to be 15x minus 5 times 0 equals, right? Now I've got to solve the rest of it. Now I know that 15x is just 15x. I don't know what that is, but I know that 5 times 0 is just 0 minus nothing, which is really nice because when I multiply things by 0, it's very simple. That's just nothing. So if I subtract nothing from 15x, I really get 15x equals. Now here's the powerful thing. All that really happened was the number next to y here, disappeared. That's all. So I'm showing these steps for your sake. And I noticed that 15 times 2 makes 30. So x has to be 2. Divide both sides by 15. I end up with that. Okay. So all that really happened was this guy disappeared. And I ended up with 15x equals 30. It's a nice shortcut. It's really easy to solve that. Now if I make, for step 2, I have to make x equals 0. So let's do that now. I have to go down here. Sure. 2. Oh, come on. 2. Computers are the worst sometimes. 2. Okay, and we'll have to just fix that in a sec. Let's worry about it later. Okay. So this time I'm going to make the x be 0. 15 times 0 minus 5y equals 30. And this control C, control V, and this. Yep, I thought so. Okay, regardless. Solve this and I'll cross the bridge of numbering later. All right, so now I know 15 times 0 is just 0 minus 5y equals 30. Really, negative 5 times y equals 30. Which negative 5 times what makes 30? Well, regular 5 times 6 makes 30. Negative 5 times negative 6, negatives will cancel. So y equals negative 6. Okay, I'm just going to really quickly erase this guy. And make him... Why can't I write on there? Interesting. Well, I guess I can't write on top of letters, so well. We'll just make this black then. Make this a 2. There. Now it's a 2. Now, step 3, I have to turn each of these, I have to get a point. So I noticed y equals 0. Actually, I'll type it again. It's just faster. Y equals 0. X equals 2. That's what I got over there. And if x equals 0, y equals negative 6. So my points are, remember, x always goes first in the point, so it's 2, 0, and 0, negative 6. So this is, notice, this is where the y is 0. So the x-intercept is 2, 0, and the y-intercept is negative 0, negative 6. And that's what we end up with. All right, so just so you understand, if I was going to do my things, this is 3. And 4. All right, so our graphing, I graph the point 2, 0 right here, and 0, negative 6 right here. I'd have a line. That's what, oops, wrong button. That's what we're doing, just for the record, okay? That's 4, okay? Just so you understand, we'll get to 4. It's not important right now because they don't want us to talk about it yet. Okay, so now we've got to graph something. Okay, let's do it. Let me really quickly, how many pages do we got left? 12 pages total. Wow, this is a lot of pages. Why can't I on pencil? I might stop after this one and come back because I am on vacation after all. Okay, so here's the way I do this if I'm in a hurry, just so you understand. Y-intercept x equals 0. I'm going to type in x equals 0. That's going to be 3 times 0 is 0. So I'm going to end up with negative 2x equals negative 6. I'm going to solve that. That means I divide both sides by negative 2 and I get, well, negative 2 times 3 equals negative 6. We get 3. Oops. I forgot that's supposed to be a y. Oops. There. Much better. Okay. So that's the point. For x is 0, and y is 3. X, oops, and x-intercept. X-intercept. Y equals 0. If I make y 0, I'm going to end up with 3x minus nothing. That's going to turn to a 0. So I'm going to end up with 3x equals negative 6. 3x Now I showed the steps that lead to that disappearing in the earlier one. That means the x has to be -2. Because -2 times 3 makes -6. Point -2, 0. All right, so now I just have to make them fit. We're going to go with this point. Oops, no, I want that to be green. I want to go here. All right, so I need to graph the point 0, 3. And the point -2, 0. All right, I'm going to make them bigger and a different color so we can see them well. There they are. So now all I have to do is graph my line. I'll graph it green. And I'll graph it with different size pencil. Boom. All right. There we go. There's our line. Notice I never talked about the slope. I just know it crosses the line, the axis here, and the other axis there. That's what we do when we have this type of format. It's just easier. And I'm going to stop for now because I need to go have lunch.